be coming out, they'll be limping around, he'll go down and hoist them up. And say, do your work, and shove them that direction.
It's a quest movie, it's an adventure movie, it's a movie with magic in it.
It's a wonderful script, how they become enticed and trapped by their own myths and legends.
Bango!
It's kind of how you would dream, except clearer.
First of all, is Heath going to be operating that camera?
Better not, yeah.
We all grew up on the Grimm brothers, fairy tales, and the Grimm brothers we always loved because they have a, cruelty and darkness that all kids love.
Fairy tales on screen are really interesting, especially done by Terry Gilliam, of course, because behind the fiction, you have truth.
And action! I've got to say from the start that this has nothing to do with the real Brothers Grimm, other than the fact that they were collectors of German folk tales, and we owe them a lot of thanks. So rather than thanking them, we're using them.
We don't want people to think that this is the biography of the Grimm brothers, because that's a completely different story. This is a much more fun, lighthearted angle to get into the world of their fairy tales.
People talk about them in Malmesbury. They're famous.
Right you are, son. The famous Brothers Grimm.
What a strapping young man.
He is my daughter.
And
This is a fairy tale, but at the same time it crosses over into this sort of semi-truthful history about how the Grimm brothers collected all these folk tales and put them into one big novel. There is a nice parallel between reality and fantasy here.
It's the same tale in her drawings. Eh? Of course, Jay.
Fairy tales are my kind of world, world of fantasy and extraordinary things. Yeah, it always felt I could do something with this.
I'm very happy to be in this project. I'm a big fan of Terry Gilliam, and the cast is amazing, especially Matt Damon and Heath Ledger.
I can't remember who they are. Just a couple of old actors. You bring them in, you put them in 19th century gear, and then we got them. We got Matt Damon and Heath Ledger, an Australian and an American, playing Germans in the 19th century with English accents.
I got a phone call that said, Terry Gilliam would like to meet you tomorrow, and can you read this script tonight? And I read the script, and I thought it was fantastic, and went in and met him, and I was just waiting for the other shoe to drop. Where's the bad news in all this?
He actually came into the meeting saying he wanted to play Will, and I said, I don't know, Matt. And I then spent the whole evening with him, talking him out of playing Will. I said, whatever you'd like to be, you are this. Certain people are born looking that way, which is certain, blah, blah. And by the end of the evening, he left and said, well, whichever part you want me to play, I'm in. Heath came around the next morning, and I just said, okay, I met Matt last night. He's great. It'd be really good, the two of you. Which part do you want to play, Heath? He said, oh, I'd like to play Jake. And I said, what? And, right, okay. Well, you got it. And the reason I liked it was we were basically casting against type. And I love doing that. And it's dangerous, and you can fall flat on your face. But I thought, okay, let's do it. Let's just turn it around. And it's been brilliant. It's worked brilliantly.
If you kiss a froggy, he'll turn into a prince.
I mean, Matt, I've never seen anybody work so hard to become a character so unlike who he is.
Hello.
Getting this English accent, the way he moves, everything about his bearing is completely different. And I hope an audience will respond with the same sort of excitement I do by seeing these guys playing such different characters than you've ever seen them play before.
Hello, ladies. What say we continue our little philosophical discussion upstairs? What do you say, Jake? A little chit, a little chat?
A little huff, a little puff, thank you very much, Will.
There he goes.
I'm hugely impressed by both Matt and Heath in their commitment to the work and their ability to work together very well.
We each came out 2 months before we started shooting, and we were rehearsing and we were researching and doing kind of all the stuff to get ready, but we were also spending time together. And
we figured out the symbiotics between the two characters, so we're synchronized in step, and then eventually after working with each other for that long, you just start smiling like each other, laughing like each other, walking like each other.
And that, while seeming the most innocuous of all the things we were doing, because everything else was scheduled and regimented, and Heath and I just kind of chose to hang out after work and have a beer and talk or whatever, you know, that stuff I think really ends up being the most important in the end in terms of establishing a relationship that's believable.
I don't know, you just find a bond, and we did.
They're not competing with each other. They've found like two sides of one character, which is so nice.
For me personally, I mean, it's been a real opportunity to leap out of my skin, and I've had an absolute ball. I've gone for it. I've had no shame whatsoever.
Oh, hey, morning. Hello.
And that's a gift from Terry, because playing comedy and feeling comfortable and free enough to express yourself in these ways, you have to really trust the person directing you, because, you know, when you're going to such extremes, there's so much bad stuff you go through. You got to be bad to be good.
Cut.
Signore, with bounteous pleasure, I, Mercurio Cavalli, present to you.
Cavalli is, it was just an incredibly interesting character.
Threatens your superior.
Cavalli is supposed to be the world's finest torturer, and he isn't.
Mercurio Cavalli, played by Peter Stormare, who is an Italian torture artist, or tortured artist, I think he is, actually.
I can make them speak.
And Cavalli, he's got a machine there that you put in liars, and out comes truth.
Bella Machina, I have perfected her. Look at her.
Show your face. And cut.
So it's a very fun character, an interesting character. He's someone who's all at once funny and dangerous, and he rides that balance really well.
This is something unheard of, but it's happened. You blocked yourself with his head.
Oh my God.
And Peter's extraordinary. He's just a brilliant actor. And to go from Bergman to what he's done in Hollywood to this.
Musica.
He normally plays such dark, sort of brooding characters. In this one, he's expansive, he's theatrical, he's outrageous.
Great Cavalli, never fun.
Well, Jonathan is wonderful because Jonathan Pryce is Delatom because he's really dangerous. And he's really funny. Again, that's another double act. The Cavalli Delatom is a double act.
Generale, I myself, I have something of a talent for the preparation to escargot. Escargot, oui.
And Jonathan, his stillness is terrifying, and Peter's busyness, it works brilliantly.
Followed with the boiling in their own shells. Oui. Allez.
Delatom, is not fond of German cuisine of the period. Apart from repressing and suppressing the people, he's interested in a good meal.
Open up the cauldron!
Well, at one point I said I only wanted to make films by Terry Gilliam, but I soon realized if that was the case, I'd be very poor, very hungry.
Look, if Terry wasn't a part of the project, I don't think anyone else would be here either. And he certainly elevated this project to another level and inspired this eccentric quality out of everyone.
It was incredible because as soon as I met him, I felt like if I knew him already. He knows how to bring the best from you and use it for the movie.
Yeah, I'm just a director for hire here. Just an old hack coming in to sort out a script that's been hanging around for a while that needed a bit of
The creation comes out of joy and festivity for him. To see things and to feel that actors are with him on a very special journey.
The Grimmy! Yeah, it is them. They are the ones. The Grimmy!
Yeah, I think it's a better punch.
The Grimmy!
What is your point?
The point? I point to Grimmy!
I dig a point.
Ah, the point.
I really love to step up 5 o'clock in the morning and I know, wow, I'm gonna work with Terry today.
He's interested in detail. And that's why he shoots everything on these wide-angle lenses that incorporate this world that he's creating. And because the lens takes in so much, the frame is packed with information, and there are all these different elements that have to work for the shot to work, and how he does that is by focusing on every detail.
Stop the geese.
Stop the geese.
Come on.
So sometimes you find yourself waiting around while they try to wrangle geese into the very deep background of a shot.
Here they come, back in for their close-up. Come on, everyone is stopped.
And the geese don't want to cooperate, and you're sitting around for 10 minutes as, you know, some geese wranglers from the Czech Republic are trying to get these geese into the background of the shot.
They could just move the geese forward a little bit, it helps. There we go.
Bring them back.
I think the performances have just skyrocketed with the geese.
With the geese.
Focused everything. Suddenly for...
What I liked about it was I could create a world that I feel comfortable in. And we've done a lot of work, and now the characters are deserving of the world, and I think we're all very pleased with where we are now.
And in the very middle of the wood was the witch's gingerbread house.
Land that we're walking up here is basically a wood structure with a plaster sheet over the top, and then various layers of peat which have been laid down. You'll see here, this is actually not real stone, it's just plaster sheet.
I'm totally eclectic. I'm just a magpie, so when we're designing a film or thinking about a film, and just books, paintings, everything. We looked at a lot of Arthur Rackham, British illustrator, because he does brilliant trees. Trees that twist and are gnarled and are almost anthropomorphic.
He felt that we'd get a stronger effect from the forest if it was quite realistic, and just a few things in there threw you off to make you feel uncomfortable.
Look at the real world. Look at what trees are like. They're bizarre, they're strange, they're terrifying.
When we were building the forest, in order to get a sort of a creepy tree look, I discovered the root ball could pass as branches, but at the same time they have unusual shapes. So we actually used that technique in the set.
It's a funny balance of going from the abstract and the totally aesthetic artistically and the natural world and trying to squish them together. The construction, when you get around to building things, we were going out and we bought old barns and tore them down and built out of old timbers so that you really feel it. I mean, you could argue it's even claustrophobic because there's so much of this world around you.
One area where he took a very keen interest in the design was with these torture devices. In fact, the Angelica torture device, where she's in a huge wine vat and the spinning blades are coming down, that was sort of a mixture of both of us getting very silly one evening with sketch paper and pencils, drawing over each other's sketches and coming up with something funny, really. Yeah, I started putting some...
but the bottom should...
Another Terry idea, a very good one. The Frankfurt Castle's food was also prepared in the dungeon. So you had this sort of disgusting crossover from torture to food and meat being prepared. So we had huge carcasses hanging up of sides of pigs and whole cows down there, all being sawn up while people were busy being stretched and boiled to death. So quite an interesting mix there. And you're not even sure if the vat of boiling oil there is actually a soup that's being cooked up or whether it's used to dip people in.
We squeezed everything into the dungeon, all the darkness of the Grimm brothers. In the 350 stories they wrote, there's always a torture chamber somewhere, or an oven, or a dark cellar that people are being locked up in.
When we started this whole thing, Heath and I started researching the brothers, but we realized pretty soon that this is very much a fiction. I mean, the brothers themselves were these incredible scholars who kind of resurrected this German folk history. They were pretty incredible guys.
These brothers were extraordinary. They had a long life and they all went into politics and they were highly rewarded.
The Grimms were writing their tales for a very bourgeois audience. They were, even to the point they bowdlerized their own work, because in the first edition of Rapunzel, who is letting her hair down, and the old lady climbs up, and one day along comes a prince and discovers this and starts coming up, and he falls in love with Rapunzel, she falls in love with him. In the earlier version, at one point when the old witch is up there, Rapunzel is complaining that her clothes aren't fitting, they've grown too tight around her belly. Bingo, knocked up by the prince. Well, anyway, in the second edition of the thing, they cut that out. I used to blame Disney for bowdlerizing Grimm's, but Grimm's were doing it before. They were, in a sense, doing what Disney was doing, going for the same middle-class audience, the safe audience. And we tried to avoid, Disney, and we tried to avoid cartoon versions of things, because I was determined that the world feel real.
Hey, Steve.
I mean, when I look at the film, the texture, you can feel it. It's all around you. It's just everywhere you're looking, there's something going on there. And I love that because it throws you into that world. I want the audience to exercise their imagination. I want them to be frightened.
The Grimm brothers and Terry Gilliam is a very good mix.
It really is unique and unlike any movie I've seen, I think, so far.
It's been a riot. I absolutely love working with that guy. Everyone does, down to every single apartment. Just loves this guy, obviously bows down to him and his movies, and so we're all willing to work our asses off for him, and we do, and we love it.
It's amazing to be part of this, you know what I mean? They built villages, they built woods, they built forests, they built ruins. It's like, I feel like a kid when I turn up.
He has his intuition, and he wants to work under the flag of joy.
I do think fantasy has got to be based on the stuff we know and touch and smell and feel, so the closer I can get to that, the better.
When it came to actually start putting together examples of digital effects, which is my area of responsibility, Terry and Kent came to me with their storyboard frames, with ideas, references, and we discussed the best way to achieve them.
Strangely enough, on this film, I didn't want to use CG. I wanted to have everything in model form. It's that interaction of things that happen in the real world when you pull something out of the dirt, dust, and things happen that you can't plan. And I really wanted that. But the reality was that the models we built, and we had moving trees, walking trees and things, they looked terrible. And we ended up doing them CG in the end.
Terry has a unique vision, as anyone who's seen his films is aware, but helping to bring that to life, very often opportunities present themselves just through the act of doing it.
You plan it out, you do make plans, and then things don't go right, so you fix it in post, as everybody does. It's no reason not to try to get it right the first time, but it is quite extraordinary how complicated the real physical world is and how many things can adjust it where in the computer you've got complete control.
The main heavy effects in this show, particularly the digital ones, are in fact very strongly connected with body warping of some description. The wolf was interesting. In its initial stages, most of the wolf close-ups were intended to be physical models, animatronics, and as often happens in productions these days, the physical animatronics just really didn't measure up.
Our problem with the wolf was I wanted to have it look like a real wolf, but a distorted real wolf, bigger, uglier, bulkier. Now the hardest part, of course, was hair, because hair is a giveaway, and that literally we only finished the wolf about a month and a half ago. It's been a very long time, and again we're finding you build a wolf. You make the underlying shapes, the musculature and all that, and it looks great and it does things. You put hair on, it doesn't look right. And we ended up having to, almost with each shot, alter things, both the lens and even the length of the nose on the wolf. It was really surprisingly tricky. And yet it was always the same model, and yet it didn't look the same when you moved it around. We had actually built a prosthetic wolf head, an animatronic one, at the beginning, and it didn't look like a wolf. I mean, wolves turn out to be one of the hardest animals to give that sense of a long nose without, if you shoot at certain angles, it just squishes up. It looks like a bear. And the first time when we did it with the animatronic, it looked like a man in a wolf mask.
Because it's a very dark character, it looked totally different from different angles. Exactly the same model, exactly the same wolf. And it proved to be probably the toughest thing in the movie, not the technical aspect of actually getting it rendering and making the hair look real. To actually get it looking like the same wolf from shot to shot proved to be, just from a design point of view, enormously difficult.
I did other things so that when the wolf leaps and lands, he sometimes skids. Again, I wanted it to get away from animation because the animators that work on these things, they're really good, but everything's beautiful, boom, lands, and there's no weight, there's no reality. And so to me, wolf comes from a great height, lands, and he skids. And that's important to put things like that in, and hopefully we pulled it off.
Everyone pretty much contributed to the many, many numbers of versions of visual effects shot that we made.
My world, I have a background and a wolf, and I put the two together and try and make the wolf look like he's running around the background that we shot in Prague. And so you have the fur on skin on a background with an actor in it. But they've all come from various sources, and some are completely digital, and you have to add dirt and defocus it, get all these layers to match together.
And I think we sort of managed to get a pretty nasty, scruffy-looking animal in the end.
The thing that gives me the most satisfaction is the sequence with Heath and Monica in the mirror. There's no mirror. And it's a whole sequence, you believe there's a mirror there, but there is no mirror. And I watch it now, and I forget the fact there's no mirror. It's either a double on one side with Heath on the other facing camera, or us using green screens and putting Heath on one side or the other.
You love her? Not him?
This is a technique called green screen, which is very similar to blue screen, whereby you shoot somebody against a flat colour. That colour is then used to switch the background, so you can basically plug in another background.
We had him looking through the frame of the mirror, and he could see a monitor of what he was doing, which we had shot previously.
By using the green screen, actually composite in, which means putting all the pieces together, build the shot up so that you have just the reflection. So now you've got just the reflection.
Again, the Queen cracking only got finished at the Thank God the film was delayed by almost a year, because that proved to be very difficult. Because to me the idea was the Queen in the mirror, when the mirror breaks, her skin for the Queen outside the mirror cracks just like a mirror, like she was made from glass. Now we shot Monica Bellucci. We actually did a 3D scan of her head. The problem with all that is all of that movement, when the mouth goes and eyes, everything is going on a face and it's turning. And in the end, a lot of that had to be done by hand.
The objective was to make the beautiful Monica Bellucci fall apart, pieces falling, and in the last two shots, she explodes. We had to figure out what pieces fall out, when and where. I went through per shot and made a cheat sheet of this paint-by-number scheme so I can figure out what I want to fall off when. And using that, created mats with each piece that falls out. Per shot, a sequence of events had to be choreographed so that you knew on frame 30 this piece falls out or this piece falls out.
The trick was also, the other thing we did was, as pieces broke, we would have them flick a little bit so the angle changed, so the light changed. All of these things were subtleties that made the thing start working.
The inner mummy, it was the next part. We started off with it being just black, a black hole, and from there started to put in the old Queen from another shot, then worked with adding different textures and adding more wrinkles and definitive areas to come up with the ugly old mummy. Here is the final result.
The simple tricks are the ones that I really like, because You don't think they're a trick, and I am happy. In fact, most of the people I work with, the effects people, are happiest when people assume there's no effects in the movie. And that's the way it should be.
Yeah, I think we ended up doing approaching 800 effect shots for the film, which is an awful lot. But in a way, the most satisfying ones are the ones people don't notice, and there are a lot of those.